So you're thinking about buying an investment property near TCU. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about the pros, cons, ins and outs, and all that kind of stuff. And at the very end, if you stick around, we'll talk about how, I guess, the most likely ways you are to get burned by buying one of these properties.
And if this is your first time to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. And if you want to be the first to know what's happening in the Texas real estate market, go ahead and hit that bell.
Welcome to the channel. My name is Tom Jung.
And I'm Jack Lisenby.
And we're your local Dallas-Fort Worth real estate agents. If you are looking to buy or sell, we'd love to work with you. Don't hesitate to just call, text, email, any of that kind of stuff. And yeah, today we are talking about the TCU area. So a lot of times it's very common that, you know, somebody's going to have a kid that's going to TCU, and so they either want to buy an investment property for the kid to live in while they're there, or maybe they are looking to buy a property for themselves when they come visit and that kind of thing. Because there is here in Fort Worth, there's a bit of a shortage of hotels. So like, yeah, a lot of times during big events, it's difficult to get hotel rooms near where you want to be.
There's only like a couple of pockets, and they're all next to high traffic areas. So if you don't want to be dealing with that whenever you move to the city, a lot of people opt for like local rentals.
Yeah. Yep. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the different areas, what you can expect if you're buying a rental property. We'll get into a little bit of the numbers. We'll also take you through a tour of a house to give you an idea of what they are like if you haven't been here before, or you just glanced at them while you're here. Yeah, and then if you have, this is always good. We always ask people to share their experiences or things relevant to this. If you've had a rental property in a college area before, and you've had some kind of weird or major issue, please share your experience in the comments. It always helps other people. Like, there's always like little weird things that go wrong. You're like, I would have never thought about that.
There's always some horror story, and I kind of want to hear what other people are dealing with.
So if you got one, go ahead and share it with everybody. But anyways, do you want to kick it off with why invest here, and is it a good investment, I guess?
Yeah, so one thing I noticed, especially being in the military, is that rental properties are like the lifeblood of people in these transit areas like this. So, or transitional areas, especially like colleges and training areas where you're there for a specified amount of time, and then you need to move afterwards, or you have the option to move afterwards. So it's going to be something that you're not going to have a problem finding a renter for. It may be situational based on like more micro time incidents like the school year itself or something like that, but when it comes to the long term, you're not going to have people not coming to this area. It's almost guaranteed you're going to have a constant flow of renters. So for one, finding bodies is not going to be difficult. As far as like the fact that it's going to be close to this area, you also know the type of people who are going to be renting there. So you have a general profile of like, okay, they're younger, they probably don't know a lot of things, so I can expect that, you know, the filter probably doesn't get changed that often. So I need to make sure that I have a list of things for them to do. So it sort of funnels down your effort into a pinpoint. Makes it a lot easier to prep and plan for things. And then on top of that, it just means that you're going to have your property is going to be sought after. So whenever you go to sell it or something like that, you know other people are thinking the same thing. This is going to be a good rental property, and you can probably leverage that to your advantage. Yeah,
and the other thing that's great about this area is TCU doesn't have a lot of on-campus housing. And then there's not a bunch of land to build on near TCU either, right? It's kind of central Fort Worth. And so, you know, for that reason, and TCU, they're, for the last 3, 4, 5 years, their registrations have gone up, right? So it's a school that's expanding as much as it can with the area given, but there's not enough housing there. So for that reason, you know, a lot of people look at it and say, okay, numbers wise, it makes sense. Now there is, if you have been paying attention, there is some new on-campus housing going in. I don't know if they call them dorms anymore, if they have a fancy word for it. I'm sure they do. But there's, I think it's supposed to be done in 2025. It's going to house 292 students. And but if you look at the growth of TCU, you know, the growth is going to be more than 292 students that year, more than likely, based on the past.
I was going to say Pascal's graduating class is bigger than that.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's probably not going to affect the rental market at all, as far as it goes here. So, understanding this area, I guess there's a couple of things just geographically to go over. So there's a few neighborhoods right around TCU where there are going to be, I guess they're going to be primarily rentals. And you've got just to the south of it, you got Bluebonnet Hills and Bluebonnet Place. And to the east, you're going to have Frisco Heights and the Pascal area, which is a little bit further away. And obviously, the closer you can get to campus, the better. So, like, if your kids can bike or your tenants can bike or walk, that's even better. And then to the north, you've got University Place. And then if you're looking at the map, like to the northwest and to the west of the TCU campus, you're not going to find as many rentals because to the northwest, you have, what is it called? University West. And that basically, once you start going north, you get into Colonial real quick. So the prices for those homes go up drastically,
very fast.
Yeah, and so it just doesn't make as much sense for rentals there. And then also to the west, you've got Tavolo Park, or not Tavolo. Geez, that's too many neighborhoods lately. Tanglewood. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Another T. So, anyways, those probably you're not going to find things that are advantageous as far as rental properties go. But right around there, like all of that area, you're going to see a lot of the same thing, which is older homes. Most of these were built in around the 1940s, and a lot of them are going to be 3.2s, about 1,700 square feet. There are some exceptions where you'll find larger homes, or people have rebuilt over the years larger spaces. And then along McCart and in a few other places, you'll find townhomes. And a lot of these townhomes were built 2014 and what is that? 9 years ago?
9 years ago.
Anyways, 9 years ago or newer, right? So those are also great options, right? Less maintenance. Obviously, everything's going to be newer. The utility bills are going to be a lot lower because of that. So just to run you through some numbers, if you're a number person, want to figure out, hey, what do the numbers actually look like? Would this make sense to do? I guess number one is, what are they leased for? Let's talk about that. So typically, depending on the size, the location, where it's at, all that kind of stuff, you're usually going to be renting these properties for $750 to $1,000 per bedroom. And I say per bedroom, it's kind of an odd way to, that's not normally how you talk about it, but
when you're looking at housing density that sparse, you kind of have to do what you've got to do.
Yeah, and so if you've got something that's like a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, you're probably looking closer to that $1,000 per tenant. If you got something newer or something really cool, obviously you're going to get more for that. But on average, like if we're just looking at an average house that sells over there, you're looking at about 1,600 square feet, a 3.2, and you're probably spending around $450,000 for it if it's in decent shape. And for that, you're going to be able to rent that for about $2,600 a year. Now, this is not great in my opinion, but there are also other ways to rent these properties. So I know of some folks that will include everything. They bundle everything, electric, internet, trash service, everything, and they charge more for it, and they charge per bedroom instead of just for the house itself. There's different ways to do it, and that's getting into the weeds a little bit more. But as far as renting it goes, just to give you a breakdown on some of the numbers, tax rate in this area is going to be about 2.6%. And so that means if you're buying a $450,000 house, you're looking at as much as $11,700 per year in property taxes, which is going to be a huge chunk. And so that's almost $1,000 a month. Your insurance is probably going to be somewhere around $225 a month. And then if you want to put in maintenance on there, if you're just estimating 5% maintenance, then that's another $130 roughly a month. So, boiling all that down, if you are doing like your typical deal here and you pay cash for your house, your cash flow is only about $1,270 a month, right? So it's not like the ideal situation, especially if you're getting a mortgage on it, right? If you're getting a mortgage, you're probably not going to cash flow unless, you're putting $300,000 down or something to that effect. So, just hopefully that gives you an idea as far as where the numbers are. Now, there are always exceptions to this, right? So there are, 4-bedroom houses that I've seen rent for over $4,000 a month. And, there's exceptions to everything. So, if that's the case, don't let it deter you. The other thing I will say, if those numbers don't sound very good to you, another area that a lot of folks will buy in instead of the TCU area is right around Linwood. And we have some other videos on this, but there are a lot of newer townhomes that went up in Linwood. And Linwood is just north of the TCU campus. It's probably a 10-minute drive, you think?
If that.
Yeah, so it's not far, but it would be a drive every time, about 10 minutes, and you're going to be close to Montgomery Plaza and the Target there. There's a bunch of shopping right there, so it's close to all that. It's also close to the bars that your kid will probably hang out at.
Hey, I mean, if they're gonna come home drunk, they might as well walk, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I was like, hey, if they are gonna go out and they're gonna go out to those bars, at least they could walk home if they have too much to drink. It's an option. Hopefully they'll make great decisions while they're at
Public intoxication is a much less severe charge than DUI.
That's true. Very true. So that is another option. And the reason I suggest this, it is going to be a little bit more expensive to buy a townhome here. They're probably an extra $50,000 to $100,000. So you're looking at probably, they range from $500,000 to $600,000 depending on what you're getting. But they will also rent for an extra $1,000 a month. So because in this area, not only do you have TCU students, but you also have young professionals that will live in this area and other folks that are retired, because it's one of kind of those few areas where you can walk to a lot of things. That's not something that's very common in Fort Worth. So
yeah, and being that close to downtown Fort Worth, you get a lot of the professionals from the town center, so it kind of dampens the party spirit.
Yeah, and if this is something, and if you are interested in this, if you want to reach out to us, you can just shoot us an email, or I think we may have a link in the description below, and we can get you set up to receive these properties, and as well as off-market properties that we come across in these areas. So anyways, that was a lot of numbers. That was some real boring stuff.
I was gonna say that's a really long section, but
yeah.
So I mean, that was a lot to put on, or a lot of black and white on paper information. So I know you guys are like, what do these things look like? Because we probably had some B-roll footage showing of the outside and the area and stuff like that. So what we're actually going to do now is we're going to go and cut to a walkthrough that we did of one of the houses in this area, so you guys can get a feel for what they're actually like on the inside, and we'll give you a little bit more information in the walkthrough as well.
All right, guys, so we're here on the north side of the TCU campus, and we picked out actually a rental property that's currently listed on the market, so you guys can get a good idea of what most of the houses around here that make good rentals look like. It is a little bit different. So back when this was made in 1935, which was almost 100 years ago at this point, it's like 90-something years ago, they didn't have a lot of architectural consistency, so you're going to see some interesting floor plans here, or an interesting floor plan here in just a second. Let's go take a look at it real quick. So this one's right up the street from the TCU campus. You may have seen it in the background earlier in that shot. It was actually just right up the road from here. So this is actually a really good location and probably does really well as a rental. But as you can see, as we're walking in here, this is a covered patio and everything. The whole house is bricked, so it's no wood siding or anything like that. But it can be 50-50 in this area. So as soon as we walk in, you're going to see this is the great room, or the living room, whatever you'd prefer to call it. But it does have a fireplace, and a lot of these older houses luckily do still have gas. So you may be able to see in the video there's a gas hookup in there, and there's going to be a couple of gas hookups throughout the house, but they are capped off at the moment, probably just to make it easier on the renters. But like I said with the floor plan, this living room opens up into a formal dining room, which was pretty typical at the time to have them conjoined in some way. It does have this little arch for separation. Walking through, you're going to see most of the floors are the original hardwood floors, and this is a pier and beam, so your efficiency on something like this may not be great, and I believe we mentioned that in the video as well. But continuing on, we have the kitchen in all its 100-year-old glory with Formica countertops, which honestly for rentals isn't a big deal because these are cheap and easy to replace, and people are going to screw them up anyway. But a lot of this stuff is the original hardware, and you're going to see this throughout most of these houses because they don't make cabinets like this. This is like actual wood. It's not composite wood or anything like that. They're actually very hardy, even if they look a little bit dated. But you've got your laundry room back here, which looks actually like it may have been an addition at some point, which leads out into the backyard. But you've got the hot water heater here in the kitchen, which is pretty typical. They keep the utilities all in one area, so that way they don't have to run as many gas lines, water lines, things like that. Like I said, you get the gas appliances in most cases. This is something that you probably won't see in houses for, ever a phone nook where you used to keep your rotary phone or your house phone. But the floor plan layout is a little interesting. So you've got one of the secondary bedrooms back here. It's just a square, but it does have a door that actually leads to the outside, because you're going to see this in 2 of the bedrooms. For some reason, they thought it was a great idea to have outside access in some of the bedrooms. You get one of the full secondary bathrooms back here as well, and some cabinetry next to it. Just some built-ins, nothing crazy. But down the hall over here, we have the second of 3 bedrooms. This is another one of the secondaries. And one last interesting architectural choice, the master bedroom up here. Yes, up here at the front of the house. Also has a door to the front porch. But we got the master bathroom here. It's nothing crazy. Pretty typical for a house of this age. But these are going to be the types of things that you see whenever you actually go looking for a house in this area. The vast majority of them are going to be around this age. This one's 1935, so you're probably going to be finding things around the 1930s, to 1950s range. This one's about 1,600 square feet. It sits on a fifth of an acre, so 0.205 acres, which is pretty typical for this area as well, but it floats between like a sixth of an acre up to a fifth of an acre. So this, like I said, this is about as median as it gets for this area. And now we're gonna jump back to the studio so you guys can finish watching the video.
All right, hope you enjoyed that tour. And if you are interested in making all this happen, you're like, hey, what do I need to do? I guess number one, financing. If you want to, if you are going to finance a property, you can definitely get with us. We'll have a link down in the description. Highly recommend our lender, Jim Lott. He was a TCU alumni, so you'll have a lot of stories to tell you if you're interested. But we'll have a link to his application if you want to go ahead and do that. Obviously, if you're buying cash, that's great as well. And then, like I mentioned before, we'll have a link in the description if you want to go ahead and sign up for the search just to see what all is coming onto the market. And also, I was going to talk about property taxes a little bit. So if you are paying cash, here's a little loophole, smart, I don't know what you call it. Way to take advantage of the system.
The path less traveled.
Yeah, sorry. not illegal. But if you are, okay, let's say that you were somebody that is buying a property because your kid was going to be going to TCU and you're paying cash. One of the things that you can do here that will save you quite a bit of money is have your kid purchase the house, you be the lien holder on it, and because they're living there, they can file a homestead exemption, which once we pass the new law here in November, it's right around the corner, that's going to basically save you, it's going to lower your taxable rate on the house by $100,000. So that's going to, right off the bat, save you $2,600 a year in property taxes. And then also, hopefully you can teach your kid a lesson on renting and property and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, that's something that you may want to consider. That's getting a little bit into financial planning, I guess. But
yeah, and if you have any actual questions about financing when it comes to stuff like this, talk to a lender for the mortgage part and talk to a CPA for the rest of it.
Yeah, there you go. So anyways, that's all I got for that section. So let's talk about getting burned.
Yeah, so I mean, since you guys stuck around to the end of the video, we've got some things that you want to avoid so you don't have any regrets when you go to buy rentals in this area. So one of the biggest things is deferred maintenance. Tom talked about it earlier. Most of these houses were built around the 1940 timeframe, 1950s or 60s at the latest. So these houses are getting up there in age, and it's not unusual to see 100-year-old houses around Fort Worth, but it's also not unusual to see all the problems that come along with them. And if you had a seller that maybe did or did not take care of this before you bought it, you might want to keep an eye out for stuff like foundation issues in the area. So a lot of these houses are pier and beam, and while pier and beam is easier to adjust and stuff like that, if they aren't adjusted, it can lead to some structural issues in the house itself because there's a lot more variance than with slab foundations. One other thing that they have a lot of is cast iron pipes. For anyone who has never looked under a house, most of what we build nowadays is PVC, and I think there's some like flex piping in some areas, but that's not very common. Around here and around this time, almost everything was made out of cast iron, which is strong but brittle. And after 100 years of exposure to the elements under pier and beam houses, a lot of them have leaks, and that can lead to issues with I mean, a countless number of things. Water under your house isn't great.
Another one I just thought about was roofs. Like a lot of times, people on investment, especially these older homes, you see a lot of times, instead of replacing a roof properly, they go over the top with another layer of shingles.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, and so like, man, I've had a property before where there were 4 layers of shingles. There was wooden shingles at the very bottom. Like they didn't even bother taking those off.
I mean, on the upside, if hail hits it, you just tear a layer off.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's not the ideal way.
That's
it's just a lot of extra weight on your house too.
Yeah, that's not how you go about fixing a roof, if anyone's wondering. But that is definitely an issue you might face.
Electric's another one. 2 wires instead of having a 3-wire system.
Yeah, so if you live in like an older area, you might be more familiar. But a lot of people have never seen this before. They'll walk into a house around here and they're like, "Why do the outlets only have two holes in them?" And that's because they didn't used to have a ground, because that wasn't considered a requirement. But that third hole is actually a ground to divert any short circuits away from things that could burn. And a lot of these older houses don't have that. So what you may end up having to take on, or asking the seller to take on, is either wiring grounds in and making everything 3-pole, or you may just need to roll up your sleeves and take care of it yourself.
Insulation, that's another one. May not have insulation in the walls.
Yeah, a lot of them don't. My house didn't have insulation. Actually, I think some of the walls still don't, because my house was 1920s. But yeah, a lot of them aren't insulated in the walls, and the fact that it's pier and beam, you may also be looking at a lot of heat loss in the floor itself.
Yep. Yeah, so deferred maintenance is definitely a big one. And also, I guess, those aren't necessarily all deferred, but things that'll cost you money once you figure it out.
Right, and this isn't to scare you guys or anything. These are just things that we see, and you may not even face any of these, but these are ones you want to look out for.
If you haven't been buying 1940 homes lately.
Yeah, 100-year-old houses. Another one, and your tenant is going to feel the pain on this one as opposed to the owner, is parking. There is next to none in some of these places. So if you're buying along the, what is that, university itself?
Yeah.
I think it's street parking. So you get maybe 2 cars lengths in front of the house.
Yeah, not only that, but like if you have a, what do you call it, a 1-car wide driveway.
Oh, yeah.
Then, trying to stack, if you got a 4-bedroom house.
Play musical cars.
Yeah, exactly. And it becomes, so these are things that factor in as far as finding tenants go, right? So those are things that they're going to be thinking about. Maybe. Right. Some of them.
Maybe not, if they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's not a huge issue. There are some options, like Tom was talking about the townhomes on McCart. I know those have driveways, so they've got extra parking. There's some houses that do. It's just if you're buying some of the ones along that main road there, typically they don't. So it's something to look out for. And then lastly is finding renters on time. So what do I mean by on time? I mean, once the school year starts, your supply of renters is going to drop off significantly, because most of the people who are looking in that area aren't going to be like families that are looking to settle down, at least not most of the houses we're referring to. It's almost exclusively going to be people that are there for the school, be it teachers, be it faculty and staff, or be it students. So once the school year starts, they've probably already got their stuff sorted.
Yeah, there's probably not a lot of families that want to live next to a bunch of college students.
Probably not.
Yeah, so that's one of the things. So like having a good firm that will really push to get renters in there before the school season starts is huge. And it's also another reason why Linwood may also be another good option,
because then you have different options as far as renters go.
Yeah. But and the other thing too, just to mention, I guess, if I've had friends that have done this before, they didn't get their place rented in time, and so they ran it as an Airbnb.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah.
So a couple things about that. Number one, you gotta furnish the place. There are some companies that will lease you furniture, which is quite interesting. They'll come in, set it all up. And then the other issue with that is technically, depending on the zoning, it won't be legal. We have a lot of podcasts on this subject because Fort Worth has kind of been,
I think the main road is mixed use and would be okay, but like some of the secondary roads.
Yeah. So if it's a multifamily or mixed use, or basically if it's not a single family residential zone, then it's okay. But even then, they don't really enforce it a whole lot right now.
Right.
But there's
no telling if that'll change.
Yeah, but that's something that you guys would have to look into and decide on your own if it's worth the risk, all that. But maybe another option, because like we mentioned at the beginning, not a lot of hotel rooms. So game day, it's sometimes hard to find places to stay. So
Yeah, for real.
anyways, that's all we've got for this video. Hopefully it was helpful. If there was something in here that we didn't cover that you're like, hey, I really wanted to know about this, please let us know in the comments. We'll be happy to answer it. Maybe make another video if we get a lot of people asking questions. But that's all we got. So if you are looking, go ahead and sign up for our search. It doesn't cost you anything. We're not gonna bug you. You're just gonna get emails with new properties.
It's just a search.
Yeah. But other than that, when you guys get ready, we'd be happy to help you. And as always, if you're looking to buy or sell, remember to keep calm, call Tom.